Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
We start the class.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So last class we had learned some of the cloud-based services. Okay, and one such service that we had learned was about cloud storage, a very important service which most providers provide you with. That is, most of the time cloud computing services are used for the sake of the facility that is provided, that is high storage capacity that is provided by the cloud providers. That is one of the main reasons why end users, maybe entrepreneurs, maybe small organizations or startups, they make use of cloud storage. Okay, so we had learned cloud storage providers. All right, we had learned who are the providers, what security options do they provide. We also learned what are the advantages of storage as a service and what could be the downside of storage as a service. All right, we learned this example of S3. Now, when we talk about cloud services or cloud applications which are executed at the client side, basically what you have to remember there is that over a network, over the internet, there is going to be a client server interaction. So clients will be the machines which are cloud consumers, and servers will be the machines which are cloud providers. So interaction between them is going to happen. Most of the time, these cloud computing applications are made available to the end user over a web browser. A simple web browser could be used to make these services available to the end user. So when a web browser is used or a web application is used, naturally certain application layer standards will come into picture which will support these cloud services. So if you are accessing cloud services on your client machine through a web browser, quite naturally these standards are going to be used. And one such important standard which is used in the application layer, especially for internet, when you are trying to fetch the data from a server, from a web server, what you require is this protocol, which is called as HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now, a little bit about HTTP, we had learned in data communication also. I don't know whether you people remember. As an application layer protocol, and to understand the concept of layering, I had taught you about HTTP. Okay, Hypertext Transfer Protocol is a very simple request response based protocol. Now, why request response based protocol? The client machine might request for information from the server. So request goes from the client to the server, and the server will in turn respond. All the time when you are browsing the internet, the web pages that you observe, the moment you type the URL, or you give the name of the website and you hit the enter key, you all must have observed immediately you get on the status bar that it is establishing a secure connection, and immediately you start getting a response and the web page gets displayed on the screen. So what happens in the background is that client will send a request to the server after establishing a connection between the client and the server through TCP. A request goes from the client to the server, indicating which web page is required. Once the server obtains this request, it will respond by sending the web page to the client machine. So HTTP basically defines how interaction is going to happen between client server. So HTTP is a client server based, it works on a client server based model, and it works basically on request response method. Okay, so HTTP defines message format and transmission. Means in the web when the interaction between the client and the server is happening, how the material, that is the HTML pages that you have, or the hypertext pages that you have, the pages that contain the hyperlinks, how they are going to be fetched, in which format they are going to be fetched, that message format as well as the transmission is defined by the standard. So understand that HTTP works at a higher level, but at a lower layer, higher layer, and at a lower layer, what is working is TCP. Hence, HTTP is a TCP-based protocol. It requires a connection. It's a connection-oriented protocol. So first, TCP will set up a connection. Then HTTP using TCP is going to send requests to the server, and server is going to respond. This very simple request response model is also commonly used in cloud computing. Now, in HTTP, there are generally about 8 types of requests that happen, or interactions that happen between the client and the server. Have a look at the list of the requests. Now, you don't have to learn them in detail, because as such, you just have to know that HTTP is used for all the cloud applications which are delivered over a web browser. So which are these requests? Head, get, post, put, delete, trace, options, and connect. Now, these requests, or these what you can call them procedures, will ensure the interaction between the client and the server. Generally, when the client wants to upload a resource, it makes use of put. When it wants to request some information from the server, it makes use of it makes use of get. And if at all it wants to submit some data that the server has to process, then it makes use of post. Similarly, if a particular resource has to be deleted, then it makes use of delete. If at all the client wants to echo the request back to the browsers so that the client can see which all servers were involved in that interaction, then it makes use of trace. Trace is going to find out the servers which are involved in the interaction between whenever this HTTP standard is working. So like that, these 8 different types of requests or different types of commands are there, which ensure smooth communication between the client and the server using HTTP. But one important thing that you have to remember about HTTP is, in HTTP, the client has to poll the server. Poll the server in the sense the client has to send a request to the server. Only then the server is going to respond. And only after it establishes, first of all, it interacts with TCP and first establishes a connection. After that, all this interaction is going to happen. So sometimes in a cloud environment, instead of HTTP, because all the time HTTP has to poll and then get a response. Instead of that, one more standard is used, which is called as XMPP, Extensible Message and Presence Protocol. Okay, XMPP does not require multiple polling. Now, I want you all to have a look at this diagram, the upper diagram and the lower diagram. In case of HTTP, if HTTP wants some information, the client wants some information from the server, it will make use of different polling events, all those 8 different requests that I showed you. So it has to send the request, only then it will get a response. So all the time it has to poll, then it will get a response. Instead of that, important standard that can be used in cloud applications particularly is XMPP. With the help of XMPP, a connection is established, all the time maintained between the client and the server. So all the time request doesn't have to go. Since the client and the server are all the time connected, fetching the information as and how it is required by the client is very, very easy. Understand the difference between the two. HTTP will require multiple polling events, multiple requests have to be sent, then the response. So I told you the model that is used in HTTP, request response model is used. Only after the request goes, then the server is going to respond. Here it is not like that. All the time they are connected, they are interacting. So XMPP will maintain that connection, and all the time a request need not go to the server. As and when required, it will send the data or the information to the client machine. So some of the important cloud providers who use XMPP are Google or Apple or IBM or LiveJournal. All these are cloud providers whose applications, whose cloud services are based on XMPP rather than HTTP. So what are the advantages or what are the features that we get with XMPP? XMPP will allow easy two-way communication without any necessity for polling. No need of requesting all the time. No need of those, like in HTTP, we saw those 8 different commands. No need of that. The connection is all the time established, so interaction is smooth and two-way all the time. It is XML based and easily extensible, which makes it ideal for cloud services. Because cloud services, most of the organizations, they subscribe to the services, the clients might require their services all the time. So rather than making use of a poll based or event based protocol, XMPP will make the matters much easier. It is efficient and able to scale to millions of concurrent users. In the sense, even if thousands and lakhs of users are there who are trying to access the server, it can cater to the needs of n number of users, thousands of users at the same time. So extensible, it is efficient, it is scalable, and it eliminates completely the need for polling. No need to send a request and then fetch the response. Okay. Now, whether it is HTML or HTTP or whether it is XMPP, remember, most of your cloud applications will require or will impose certain security standards. The reason we all know, and we have been discussing for so many days also. Whenever you are storing your data on the server or you're accessing certain applications from the server, quite naturally the internet will be involved. And when it is involved and when your data is in transit, when it is going from the client to server, lot of users are there who might hack into the system, hack into the network, and there can be data theft, there can be information theft. To ensure that such incidents don't happen and your data remains secure, these standards or these cloud-based applications make use of an important standard which is called as SSL, Secure Socket Layer Standard. Now this SSL we have learned in data communication, advanced computer network. When I was teaching you, I have taught you what is SSL. Little bit of revision we will do today. Now SSL it ensures security of your data when your data is in transit or when interaction is happening between the client and the server. So SSL is a standard security technology. It is a protocol, it is a method which ensures security of data over a network. It need not be only in cloud-based applications. It can be used in other types of applications. Non-cloud-based applications also it can be used. But very commonly, most cloud providers do implement SSL because it ensures lot of security. It ensures, imposes certain security measures which will ensure that your data will remain safe. It will remain secure. So what does SSL do? SSL establishes a secure link between the client and the server. And this link is an encrypted link. As I said, SSL will ensure security. When your interaction between client and server is happening, it is going to ensure security. How does it ensure security? By establishing a link, by establishing a connection, which is an encrypted link between the client machine and the server machine. So with that, lot of impositions are going to be there, lot of restrictions are going to be there when you're transmitting your data, when you're transferring your data. So if your connection is a SSL connection, whether it is HTTP, whether it is XMPP, when you're accessing your cloud environment, when you're accessing your cloud application over a SSL connection, compulsorily what will be required is a SSL certificate. So your client machine has to show or has to prove the credibility. Only then the server is going to transfer the data. You can understand the reason why. Clients are situated very far away. Servers are situated very far away. Any imposter, maybe a person who just knows somebody's user ID and password, or maybe a person who doesn't have good intentions, may be able to access the data, and there the security of the data can be compromised. So SSL works, or it requires what we call as a SSL certificate. Now, what is this SSL certificate? Whenever the cloud provider, it starts a session, that is a client machine wants to access the services provided by the server. So what the cloud provider means the company which is giving you cloud services like Google or Amazon or Microsoft and so on. So whenever the cloud provider has to give you the service, first thing that the cloud provider will do is, if at all that particular provider is making use of SSL, is it will start a SSL session. Now, when the SSL session starts, the client is bombarded with a number of questions that the client has to answer. It could be about some authenticity like user ID, password, maybe a CAPTCHA could be there, or maybe some other queries could be asked to, first of all, identify the user as a credible user. Now, once the initial screening is done, after that, the SSL session will generate, actually SSL works with the help of two keys. Now, we have learned this also when we were learning about advanced computer networks. Two keys in the sense, one is called as public key, the other one is called as the private key, because I said the link that is established between the client and the server is an encrypted link. So there are going to be two cryptographic keys. One is public key, the other one is private key. Now, as you people know, public key is generally public, means it need not be confidential. Whereas private key is very confidential and it is known only to the authenticated user. Okay. So when this SSL session begins and the client has has cleared the initial screening, then two keys are generated. One is the public key, the other one is the private key. Public key is not a confidential key, and it will be stored in a file called as Certificate Signing Register, CSR. So public key is always maintained inside a file which is called as a CSR. Now, there is a certification authority, in the sense a centralized authority, which will validate the details that are being given along with the public key and issue a SSL certificate. So there's going to be two-way or two levels of screening. One is the public key is generated and it is stored in the CSR. Once it is stored in the CSR, the certificating authority, which will ensure security, will check those details and generate a SSL certificate. Once the SSL certificate is generated, it is sent to the cloud provider. The cloud provider, what he will do, the cloud provider will match the SSL certificate details with the private key that has been generated. And if they are matching, then a secure link is established between the client and the server. So you all can understand that it is not just the username and the password which is going to screen the user. Apart from that, the cryptographic keys which are generated, the public key and the private key, they along with the SSL certificate will create a very secure procedure. Only if the user has cleared that secure procedure, then a secure link is established. Only after that the data transfer is going to happen. Now this is little time consuming in the sense not hours together, but in general, very quickly if you want to access cloud data, then this might take a little more time. And that's the reason many a times when you suppose your organization is all the time going to require cloud data, and this time you people don't have, then SSL sessions are terminated abruptly. Sometimes that option is available. But what you're doing there is, if at all you terminate a SSL session, you are compromising with the security of your own data. But if you allow the SSL session to happen, your data can remain secure and it can remain safe, away from the risk of malicious users. Okay. All right. Now, apart from SSL, there are two more things which we have discussed in the past. So I'm not taking them in detail here. One is OpenID and the second one is PCI DSS. Now, to provide security to your cloud applications or the data that you're transferring on the server, one is SSL. Second one is OpenID. Generally, in the last, this thing also I told you, security is provided by checking the credibility of the user. Credentials are checked, user ID and password. So there are certain IDs which are called as proprietary IDs, like I gave you example of Google ID or a Gmail ID that you have created, a Google account that you have created, which could be used for all Google applications. That is called as a proprietary ID. But like that, you can also have open IDs, and they are like open source, what you can say, alternative for your proprietary IDs. Okay, so certain cloud providers will provide you open IDs. Once the open ID has been generated, username and password has been generated, you can use it for cloud-based applications. The advantage that you get with the open ID is that you are not restricted with that open ID when you change the cloud provider. For example, right now, suppose I have subscribed to Amazon web services or Amazon's cloud services. And in future, I change it. I go to Google or I go to Microsoft. I can still make use of OpenID provided it is supported by that cloud provider. So whenever you are changing your cloud provider, the services you are going to change, still you can make use of the same ID. Such an ID is called as an OpenID. It will also ensure security of data. Another standard that is going to ensure security of data in such a cloud-based environment is payment card industry. The other day I was telling you about PCI DSS. It is a standard which is going to ensure, which is going to maintain security of data, particularly when you are doing very confidential transactions. For example, bank related transactions, when you are withdrawing the money or depositing the money or making a fund transfer to some of your contacts, very secure transactions have to happen. And for that, the payment card industry has come up with a standard that we have learned in the past. So along with SSL, PCI DSS and OpenID are other two aspects that are coming that we need to know, especially when we are accessing applications over a cloud. Okay. Now, the last point today, what we have to learn is about client machines. Now, sometime back, actually in your book, it is taken like this: initially about client, then about infrastructure, then about network, then again about client. So since it is there in the syllabus like that, we'll just go back a little and try to recollect what we have learned. Client machines are machines which are cloud consumers. They access cloud applications and are the machines which might generate data to be stored on the server. So these client machines could be either mobile phones, they can be laptops, they can be desktop machines. The client machines generally need to run certain specialized software to access the cloud applications, and these specialized software could be written using could be developed using HTML or DHTML. Now a lot of things about HTML and DHTML you people have already learned, since you're learning about web technology or web programming. A little bit about them you have learned. So HTML is hypertext markup language. It is made up of a number of tags which will allow you to create documents which contain hyperlinks. But most probably the HTML tags that are there, they allow you to create static web pages. But sometimes we require dynamic web pages. So DHTML will help you when you want interaction from client side to the server side. And for DHTML, there are 4 components. One is document object model, CSS, cascading style sheets, the scripts that are there, and JavaScript. All these technologies are put together to design software to be run at the client side to access the cloud-based applications. Now, we need not learn all these or details about these, but at least we must know that client machines require specialized software which allows it to interact with the server and fetch the data from the server. Okay, so there's a little that we learned today, and a little more is remaining, which we will take up in the next class. So we learned for executing or for accessing cloud applications, we require certain web-based standards, like HTTP could be used over a browser when we are accessing the cloud applications, or XMPP could be used. We know now the difference or what is the advantage of using XMPP. Then features. We learned also security of data is important in a client server application or in a client server mode. And most of the time cloud providers will implement the SSL standard, secure socket layer standard. Okay. So what you people can do first is enter your attendance. Okay, now I want you all to have a look at the syllabus. The first unit we have completed, second unit almost we have completed, except one last point, that is infrastructure and service. Okay, so that we will cover in the last class, next class. But there is one point which, if you all can see in the second unit, after web APIs, there's a point called as web browsers. Can you all see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So last year also we had asked the students to make presentations on web browsers, because it's a very simple topic. Instead of I telling you what is Google Chrome and what are its features, or what is Firefox and what are its features, we had asked the students to make a presentation on web browsers. So if any one of you or some of you, at least 5 people from you, are interested, some important web browsers that we have, their features, when it was developed, or some story behind that web browser, you can make a presentation on it and you can give it in the class online. Okay, so you can, if you want, you can make a group presentation also. At least 3 to 4 browsers we can discuss. One is Chrome, another one is Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, and then I think Apple has got its own browser. So if some 3 to 4 important browsers we can take up, You can decide which browser you want to present. If you want, you can make a group presentation, 2 or 3 people in one group. And the advantage that you will get is if you are doing a presentation, I will make sure that you get full marks in your internals. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So by next, today is Wednesday, no? Should we have a presentation on Monday? Monday or even Tuesday will do. Monday, I will complete the second unit, some part that is remaining. Tuesday, you people can give.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So how many of you are interested to give? You will get in touch with your CR and let me know. Rishikesh,
Yes, ma'am.
will you get in touch with your classmates and maybe 2 from girls and 2 groups from girls and 2 groups from boys? At least 4 important, any 4 important browsers you can work on. If more people are interested and more such topics they want to take, no problem. But at least 4 browsers we should be able to cover.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you people will let me know by today evening. Give your names to Rishikesh and he will inform me. Your CR or your LR, anything would do. Anybody.
Yes, ma'am. I'll collect names and I'll give it to you today evening.
Yeah. And the presentation will be on Tuesday. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Fine. We'll stop here and we'll continue in the next class.